and how to do a successful discovery, not only just with this tool, but how to do discovery from a standpoint of this is how you discover, this is what the standard steps of discovery are. Maybe go on to the next slide now. So I'm Angela. I'm an automation and process improvement and working for a company called Pernix. We're an Adelaide-based company. And I've been working in the industry for quite a few years now. I've covered development, business analyst, and management. So I've got experience with all sort of areas of the UiPath platform, but recently I've been focusing in the business analyst role and here to provide you into a bit of an insight into automation. And with me, Sloane did a bit of an introduction earlier, but from those of you that didn't hear, she's got 14 years experience with automation, AI, all that sort of stuff, and has actually previously worked from UiPath, so she's quite in-depth knowledge of the platform. Next slide. So the rough agenda for this meeting will be, we'll start with discovery. What is discovery, how you discover, and particularly using UiPath. And then we'll go through all the stages of discovery from the initial stage onto passing it onto the delivery team. We'll discuss some of the industry challenges, as in how you're going to collect automation. Oh, lots of echo I'm hearing.
Let me go on mute, Angela. Give me it. If
yeah.
I am not.
Okay, let me know if that's a bit better, Isabel. But I'll just keep going until I hear that it's not. But yeah, we'll continue discussing some of the industry challenges, and then we'll go into, after we've got our heads around what discovery is, some of the UiPath discovery tools and how they can assist in resolving some of those issues. And in that, we'll demonstrate Automation Hub and UiPath task capture. Then we'll lead into any questions, but it's sort of an open forum here. It doesn't need to be presentation-like, so feel free to pop in with any questions, even just in the chat or whenever you feel comfortable. Next slide, Sloane. So what is discovery? So that's just a little bit of a definition there. That discovery refers to the process of identifying and evaluating business processes that can be automated. It involves analysing workflows, gathering data, assessing the potential for automation to improve efficiency and reduce costs. So in those boxes down below, we've got sort of the main components of automation. So you've got the process identification stage, which is where you're like, hey, this could be a potential automation process. I'm copying, pasting data. This could be an automation process. And then that goes into the analysis phase where you're sort of like, oh, hey, this is what this process does. It goes from this system into this system, and you're copying and pasting data, whatever the process does, and a bit of documentation on that. Then you do some feasibility on whether we can automate this task, or if there's a lot of human input required, like maybe it isn't a task that can be automated. And then there's also the prioritization. So if your backlog is big enough, and you might want to prioritize like the quick wins over some of the more complex tasks that don't give you as much return on investment. But we will go into that all a little bit later. This is just a quick introduction into what discovery is. Tends to be like meeting with stakeholders and understanding the process, in short. Next slide. So why do we need discovery? Why can't we just develop straight away? So number one, we need a way to discover what processes we can automate. So identifying those automation opportunities, whether that will be through growing what automation is across the organization, just finding out where automation could be applied, or just doing some deep dive into some departments where automation could be. Also, automation tends not to be implemented unless you can see a good return on investment or save in man hours. So understanding the benefits of each automation use case is pretty important, and doing some calculations either through Automation Hub, a process assessment tool, or like NPV, to prioritize which cases will realise the most benefits and where you'll realise those benefits. Also through discovery, it's important to understand the risks, so then you can go onto senior management and say, these are the risks with doing this automation. Maybe it's a security risk or some other sort of risk, or maybe there are no risks. Do you accept this risk and do you want us to proceed? And then the last one, but probably one of the most important ones, is the use case understanding. So in terms of, instead of giving a developer this whole, hey, automate the financial reconciliation process, you'd have all the screens documented and what each individual step is doing. So it makes the developer's job a lot easier, because they're like, hey, we just need to do all these individual steps, not asking questions throughout, and just, yeah, it makes the developer's job a lot easier. Next slide. So this is the stages in an RPA discovery process in general. So this changes depending on the organisation that you're in. Saloni, maybe just hide the, yeah, cool. So depending on the organisation you're in, it might change. But in general, this is the process that you follow. So you start from the start. This begins your RPA journey. And it involves identifying across the organisation that you might need automation and initiating discovery for the automation. Then you're going to gather that initial information, which might be the existing processes, the pain points with each individual process, maybe even some ROI, or there's like one person doing this job, but really it's just copy and paste. Can we do this a bit better? And then creating inventory, which is another word for creating a backlog, which is sort of all these processes which you want automated. And yeah, should we go ahead with these processes, and then prioritizing those processes. Yeah, and then moving on to the process assessment, which would be evaluating each process to determine if it is suitable for RPA, and you'd consider things like the complexity, the stability, how frequently it would run. Then you would go on to process mapping. And that would be like drawing out a process diagram. This is what this process does. So you go from one stage onto the next stage, decision points, that sort of thing. And then you'd go on to the technical assessment, which would be maybe meeting with a solution architect to go, and even developers to be, is this feasible? Can we do this with this product? Sort of thing. Then you'd go on to the ROI calculation, which would estimate how much return on investment you would get for each individual, each use case. So if it's worth doing, if you're saving maybe 0.01 FTE, maybe that's something that they're not going to look at doing. And then going on to business case creation, which is like creating an argument for why you might want to do this use case. What are the benefits, the advantages, the risks, and how does this align with the future of the organizational goals? And then you've got the final sort of go or no-go, like, do you want to go ahead with this automation, or are you not going to do this one at this stage? Choosing the process which you are going to do. Usually it's based on ROI, but Saloni's going to go through some automation hub and how you might do that through UiPath. And then documenting out the process, so creating a process definition document and then handing it over to the delivery team to start implementation. Cool. Next slide. So I might just quickly touch on this. So some of the issues that you do face in discovery, especially not having an automation hub set up, would be limited avenues for users to share their ideas on automation. So if you've got people across the industry that are facing, the organisation that are facing issues, but they don't know how they can raise those issues or stuff, they might just keep those ideas to themselves. So without having that sort of avenue for them to raise ideas, that's sort of a challenge that's faced. And then another one would be unable to prioritize the backlog because you don't have any ROI or statistics there. Yeah, so I sort of just skimming over this one. So there's some of the key challenges that you face in the industry. Another one would be if stakeholders are sort of withholding information and not giving you full visibility of the process. Next slide, Sloane. So how do you discover? There's a bunch of ways to discover depending on the tools that you have have exposure to. So process mining is one of the UiPath tools that is used, and that's basically where you provide a bunch of data like system extracts, or it can be directly linked to the system, and then identifying the processes that are done from there. The most common ones you might look at automating as well. So that would sort of uncover process flows and repetitive tasks that get done through that. The other one, which is sort of common when you're starting out in an automation space where they're not really willing to make investment straight away, is workshops and interviews. So literally just meeting with stakeholders or SMEs and being like, hey, what do you do here? Why are you doing this? Which steps do you follow? And just meeting with people and just understanding their process. And using the assessment frameworks, you can evaluate the processes based on the complexity, the volume, the business impact, and prioritize based on that as well. Next slide, Sloane. So I've talked a little bit about prioritization already. So this is sort of the key to prioritizing a discovery use case. So when you're starting out a discovery, starting out an automation, you're going to want to start with those quick wins, whether you're seeing high benefits and low complexity to implement, because you're going to see the highest return on investment with that one. So you're it's gonna take maybe a week to implement, and then you're gonna see lots of benefits, and you're gonna see that ROI, and that's the best place to start. When a business can see how automation can benefit from it, they're gonna want to keep going with it. The ones you sort of leave to last are the high complexity and low benefit ones, so those long-term improvements. Unless you're really far along in the automation journey, you probably don't target those ones. They're one of the last things you look at doing. In medium benefits and low complexity, you also look at the beginning, which might be more of a low-hanging fruit. So there's stuff that can be implemented really easily are a really good starting point. Maybe I'll stop for any questions, because I'll be passing on to Sloane to talk more about the UiPath tool and how the business automation platform works. But if there's any questions, as Rohit said in the chat, feel free to pop in at any time.
Thanks, Angela. Thanks so much for setting the context regarding the discovery and how this is done. So I'll talk more from the UiPath standpoint in terms of the platform that we have. So of course, we all know that this is the operating model that UiPath has, which consists of 3 different levels, which is discover, automate, and operate. So within Discover, it's more about looking at your processes and understanding whether there's an automation feasibility. And with that, we move towards the automate layer, which is basically building and configuring the entire automation. And finally, the operate layer, where we actually operate our implementation in terms of the bots and other aspects of the processes that we need to actually align it to the organization. So for today, we'll focus on the discover part. So there are typically 4 products that UiPath takes into consideration for helping mining our processes. First one being the process mining. So when we talk about process mining, this is basically a kind of a software or an application which is installed in a system of user, and then it goes in the data that has been stored with the various navigations or the process that the user performed in form of logs, events, or activities. So it can go and fetch the details like how much volume that person has processed, what was the time that they spent, to look at the bottlenecks within the process. So that's about the process mining. And from a task mining space, it's more of a real-time application which tracks your tasks that you're doing so that it can understand exactly the same thing of how you're performing that task and then how much time you're. So typically a difference between both of them is like process mining is looking at the data that is stored within applications, and task mining is actually navigating through the real system that the user is using to perform the process. Communication mining is more on mining the communications part of the business, which can be chats or any emails, to understand if there is a automation potential. And finally, we are looking at the idea capture and management, which is actually the automation hub, which is like an idea platform where everybody in the organization can share their ideas while they are working. So a person who's really doing delivery, they are the closest in terms of the processes that they are working on, so they know that there is a potential to automate that process, but they can actually share it on automation hub with certain other level of details which I'll be talking about. So now we'll focus only on the idea capture and management for this call. As I gave a little bit of brief about what Automation Hub is. So it's a platform where employees, COE, or other stakeholders can actually share their ideas. So it's like an opportunity pipeline. And then based on the different data that they're sharing, management can use it to understand whether it's a good process to automate, and the various other calculations like whether there's an ROI associated, whether it's a benefit for the organization to pick up this process and automate it. So all those details are pretty much available in Automation Hub. Apart from that, it also provides like a documentation repository. So with a process, you can also associate different documentations like PDD, a software design document, or any other documents that you have as part of your process. So that's like a one-stop platform for anybody who's tracking this particular opportunity from end to end. So it's pretty easy for everybody to track. And finally, there are some of the pre-built dashboards that are available within Automation Hub that gives management a view of how many processes are actually being automated within a program, what is the cost, how much of benefit it is giving in terms of employee save or time save, etc. So that's all in this particular application. Moving to the next one, where I like to talk about what it can provide, and then I'll actually go to the application demo. So I spoke about some of the aspects about Automation Hub being a centralized management, where it is one-stop destination for anybody who wants to track an idea, starting from the idea generation to the delivery. So you can track each stage, who are the different stakeholders involved, who are different developers, etc. So it's pretty easy for somebody to look at it from a centralized view. You can really prioritize your opportunities within our organization effectively, because of course you have some AI associated with Automation Hub that can give you all those statistics regarding your ROI, etc. So you can pick up your priority based on scientific calculations rather than just decision making without any substantial data. We've been talking about cost benefit analysis. Of course, it gives you an understanding how much is a cost, how much is actually a benefit from all the automations, so that you can take an informed decision rather than picking up something which might not be beneficial over a period of time. So another good aspect within this particular tool is that when an employee actually submits this idea, they can also understand whether their process is ready for automation with simple understanding of the process. Where is your data structured? Is it available online? So all these information is which Automation Hub captures and tell you how ready you are for automation, along with an automation potential for that particular process. There are, of course, a lot of reports that can be used by different personas that can provide you an overall understanding of how your overall opportunity assessments and your program for automation is going forward. Automation Hub gives a lot of flexibility. So it's not a very rigid tool where it just provides you certain assessments. You can actually configure it or customize it based on your organization. which means that, for example, you have different departments, you can configure it. You can also configure flow of about how this particular process moves from one level to another in terms of approval. So that's all customizable in Automation Hub. Apart from that, Automation Hub is available on cloud. Of course, we have on-prem as well, but being it on cloud, you need not worry about any excess or people using it. So it's ready to go solution. It very well has got integrations with another applications which companies use to track their tickets, etc. So Jira is one of them. So it can be used to create tickets based on the opportunities, and then you can start tracking it. And then, as I said, there is already a built-in workflow within that particular application, which can help you understand different phases and stages, how it is moving and who is approving that, to understand that whether there's an informed decision of automating. And finally, because we are looking at implementation, we have documents, we have got substantial data already available. So it's easy to implement and collaborate within the organization. So that's what I wanted to talk about, the different benefits which can help any organization really start their journey of automation. Now I'll pick up Automation Hub as a platform. So I've just opened that instance within my system. So this is where Automation Hub is available on cloud, and that's how it looks like when you log in. So before I actually go, I'll quickly show you how this tool looks like to an employee. So for an employee, it's not a similar kind of a layout because it looks sometimes overwhelming with so many details on the screen. So if an employee logs in, he or she would see a simple, I'll just play a video. So they'll see a simple application where they will have two space of workspace and explore, and then they can start submitting their idea. So they have to enter some basic details about what is the area that you're planning to automate, what is the category, and whether it's an employee-driven idea or a CEO-driven idea. And then give a quick description or a summary of your automation that you're planning to automate. So that's where the employee will fill all these details. So this would help somebody who's picking up this idea for approval to understand what this particular opportunity is all about. So yeah, this is how somebody will describe their process, what they are working on. As I said, a person who's really doing that knows the particular process much more than anybody else. Then these are some of the quick assessment aspects which they will submit. I'll just pause here. So the first one being whether your process is a rule-based process. So we know that RPA would be very beneficial if you have rules pretty defined in your process. So it's just asking what is the levels within your within your process. The next one being if your input is digital, whether it's available on a system or somewhere. Because if it's a handwritten document or if it is just a form which is printed and kept in a file, might not be a real suitable example of automation. I'm sorry. So yeah, again, just repeating the same thing. So it's just checking on how digital your input is, how it is formatted. So whether it's a structured format, it's a semi-structured format. So all these things. Very important thing is your process changing in next 6 months. If it is changing, might not be really suitable for you to automate at this point of time. What kind of documents you already have available, which also helps you calculate how ready you are for automation. And then you would have somebody assigned as a process owner who actually helps you look at this idea and then give a go ahead whether we should really think about automating this one. And once this is saved, it gives a quick summary about, as I said, the readiness score, the idea score, etc., which would be populated on the screen. Yep. I'll pause here. So it's giving you an idea score, which means at an overall level, how good is your idea in terms of whether it's an ideal candidate for automation or not, how suitable it is, like how much is the automation potential in terms of automating it, and finally in terms of what I spoke about, whether your process is digital, whether your particular inputs are pretty structured. It tells you how ready you are. If probably your all these informations would be lower, it gives you a lesser percentage. So that's a quick start for somebody who's trying to understand whether it's a good use case to implement. So that's where it gives edge over other processes which might not have that calculations. Now, coming back to this one, what I'll do is I will start submitting an idea from a COE standpoint. So we saw how employee actually submits an idea. So employee need not share a lot of information. You would have seen a very basic information that they were sharing. But if it's a COE, so we are expecting that a COE might have much more information than an employee. So that's how you can actually look at the workspace, and then you click on submit idea. And then you again put what department you want to probably give your idea for. So within HR space, I want to give an idea in the recruit and onboard employees. Then there can be any kind of subcategory. And I already spoke about the employee driven idea and then a COE driven idea. The only difference between these two ideas is the first one is actually approved for the next stage. The second one is auto approved, where you can actually start adding different details, and then you can take it for next level. So when COE driven, so of course there is a citizen developer automation as well. So all these people can submit their ideas. Yeah, so I will. So I'm just submitting some of the information. You can also add pain points and negative impact, but this is not a mandatory field. And when I was talking about the configuration of flexibility, etc., so these assessments are pretty flexible that you can change. You can add some more questions to that. You need to provide what are the primary reasons to automate this process. So it can be cost, quality, productivity. So for example, I say cost. Then how stable is this process? So as I said, if process is changing within couple of months, it's not a very suitable idea to automate now, because you will spend all the effort of implementation, and probably after 6 months it's not really going ahead and doing that particular benefit which you thought it will do. So I would say no change expected. And talking about how applications are changing. So the difference between the first one and the second one is process is the overall steps that are involved in the process, how they, and the applications are like the underlying software or any kind of applications like an SAP, Oracle, maybe an Outlook that you're using. If they are going to change, then probably not a really good solution for you thinking about automation. So I would say no change expected. Then you would also talk about what is your employee working profile. So how many days the employees work in a year for your organization, 200 days. Then how many working hours per day? I'll probably put Australian standard ones, but yeah, of course, it can vary from country to country, geography to geography. This is kind of optional, where you have to provide an average employee cost so that it can help you calculate how much is the benefit that you are trying to reap out of this solution. So I'm just giving a ballpark number, which is 75K. This is per year cost. Then what are the tasks or the frequencies at which this particular process is really carried forward? So I'll say probably it's a daily task, and then you have to provide what is the volume. So I would say I get 10 resumes in a day, and I want the automation to screen those. And this is per company or per employee. So if you have 5 recruiters in your organization, then you can say this is 10 resumes per employee. But if it is overall, then you can say 10 per company. I'm just trying to check whether everybody can hear me. I am not sounding too technical, or it's not difficulty to catch. All good so far?
All good, Saloni.
Perfect. Thank you. So the difference is, like, initially we asked like whether it's a daily task and what is the volume. Now we're asking number of employees performing that task. So there can be a difference between the real employees that are working and the real people who are working on this process. So for example, there are 10 people working in the organization, but they're spending only 2 hours per day. So probably very thin line about how you add your number of employees here. So if they are full time, probably you can say 10 employees. But if they are working only to us, accordingly you enter your number of employees working. And then average processing time per transaction. So how much time every user is taking to screen a particular resume, we'll say 10 minutes. So that gives you around 333 hours per year. That's the as is time that any user is actually spending on all the resumes that you're getting on your in your organization. It also talks about the error rate. So you can just a 5%, which will take a basic one, and how much is a rework. So we'll say probably another 5%. So this is something which you can add, or you can just say 0. So I'll skip audit. So I'm saying that we don't review any task, or there's no audit that's happening. So you can just say 0. So there is no typical audit time that is spent for this particular process. So finally, the as is time is 341 hours per year. And the FTs required is 0.23. So as I said, though I have said that there might be some 10 people working, but ideally to do this task, you need 0.23 FTs based on how much is the time which is spent for each transaction. And cost per year is around 17K, which is the time, which is, sorry, not the time, the cost for 0.23 FTs working on this. Some of the other aspects also which Automation Hub would try to understand is the peaks, like, because it's important to understand how much bots you might need to look at sometimes if your resumes are going up. So if you say, like, it's a rare but predictable event, you can put that. How many steps are involved in your current process? So that's number of steps starting from getting a resume to screening it. So what are the steps? Ways to complete the process. So if you say that this is done same every time, so you can look at the various drop down values. So whether it's done same time every time, or there are variations just less than 2 or greater than, greater than 2 or less than 5. So these are the different values that you would input, so that finally it will give you the right numbers to calculate your assessment. Apart from that, which is also asked to an employee, is how much is of your data input structured, etc. So I would say my digital inputs are 80%. I do not have any scanned inputs. So when I say scanned inputs, they are more of data that is in a particular paper, and I'm scanning it to add as an input to my implementation. How much of my data is structured? So I'll probably provide some more details here. So when I say structure, there can be three types of structures. One is structured, which means the format is pretty much aligned every time. So it has a very fixed format of some fields on resume. So I'll always see the name of the particular candidate, his skills, etc. So that's a structured format. But typically a resume is actually a semi-structured and not a structured, because we know that the fields are structured, but it can be anywhere in the resume. So I would say my data is only 60 to 80% structured. And then, yeah, that's what the data input would be. And then you can also provide some of the applications that you might use. So for example, I would say Outlook, where I get my resumes, and then I assume that the bot would have to go and pick these resumes from Microsoft Outlook. So I'll add that application, and you can add as many as you want. And this is what the kind of assessment that the automation hub has done based on what information I have provided. So it says that my automation potential is 63%. The reason maybe because it is low is because I've said my data is not so structured. If I would have given a higher rating, so it would have given a better automation potential. Ease of implementation is based on how my data is digital. So that's where it is saying 100%, because I'm saying that, yeah, I have all my information pretty much digital. How much of time it is saving, so it's basis how much of FT, all those hours that I have provided. So this would, if I automated, this is the time it would save. That's per company hours saved, and in terms of the dollar value, it's saving around $10,742. So you can actually decide for an organization, like, these are my ballpark numbers, which is something which I want to pick it as idea for automations. If something is between 10 to 15, yeah, it's a good idea for me to automate. But if there is a kind of automation which is giving me only 3,000 or 3K dollar value benefit, I don't want to pick it up. So all those things you can actually do in your organization to understand what is actually your priority to pick up. In terms of benefits per company, it will give me a 0.14. Might not be great, but yeah, there are other things also that you might want to look at, is because this might take away some of the mundane tasks that recruiters are doing, and they can focus on some of the better opportunities about strategic work that they can do in their day-to-day work. Then all these things about benefit per employee, benefit per employee in terms of hours and currency. And finally, this is what I am saying in terms of the 10 employees that I provided, that I'll be taking their work for 0.01 hours. Okay, and finally, this is to whom I want to provide my next level of approval. So you can pick up a value, and then this would be sent to that person to evaluate that and then take a decision whether this is something which we should take forward. And this would load, and then you can submit your idea. And this would, you have already seen how the assessment is provided for that particular opportunity. Saving all the data that I've provided. Yeah, it's all good. And then this idea is added to my idea list, which is in the workspace. And this is like my submissions. So this is another task. But if you want to see the automation pipeline within your organization, you can have a look at all the ideas that people have submitted. And within this, we have multiple or different tabs, which is like the ideas which is in the review, like, somebody's doing assessment, somebody's trying to understand if it is qualifying, etc. And then if the ones which have been assessed but being qualified are under decision pipeline. Implementation is that it has already been approved and now it is with the delivery. So, starting from design to then live. Not live, sorry. This is design to build. So this is where implementation would be. And then finally, when it is moved to prod, that's where the live ideas are showcased. So this is like a quick summary of where your automation pipeline is in terms of the status, based on how we are sharing our ideas. Also, you can look at different people who are collaborating within the automation space for your organization. Who are the collaborators? You can see different components, and this is like who is following this particular person within Automation Hub. Apart from that, you can also explore in terms of the entire automation, pretty much similar to the pipeline. So the pipeline was giving you at a different stage level, whereas explore all the ideas within my organization. You can see one by one. Who are the people, like, it gives you a quick summary about all the people who are part of that. Components is more or less the repository or the reusable components which are tagged to different automation ideas. And then before I go into the dashboards, I'll also like to showcase a few other bits within the idea that I have shared. So if you open that, you would see that there is cost benefit analysis based on the data that you have provided. So if you open that, so you can also provide information about who is actually a part of the plan. So if we need a developer, we need a business analyst, so all those informations get into the cost benefit analysis. So that is something which would be the cost. So you can go into edit, and then you can add different values. So it also gives you a space where you can actually add your project plan. So this is how Automation Hub has provided its estimation of whether this is an easy implementation, etc. So this is the starting of how easy it is to implement your process. Then you can provide your project plan, what is the baseline, also track your actuals for what you had estimated and where you are going in terms of the plan. And that's where I was talking about from an cost perspective. So you can configure like what all solutions you are using, whether you are using a UiPath or any like solutions. Then you can also share what kind of automation you're looking at, whether it's an attended or an unattended automation type. So you can configure all that at the backend. You can provide, so this is already provided. So I already gave the value within my assessment. So this is the volume which it's tracking, and then this is how it is split before and after automation. So it's giving me a summary of how much it is benefit before I automated it, after I have automated it. And then also, once I've automated, not necessary that I have 100% automated it, because I said there was an error rate of 5%. So even after automation, there is still some time which the human being is putting, which is after automation. So earlier the human being was putting 100%, but now it is 37%, where now our bot is actually working in a different manner, which is 63% after the automation. So that's the split that it is providing. And finally, you can also give cost at a different level. So you can provide analysis cost with the people that might be engaged. So you can configure like a developer, a business analyst, all these roles within your admin console. So yeah, this is how you can calculate the cost benefit analysis. And when I've been talking about the admin console, so you can actually configure all these information. So this tool gives you a platform to manage your access. So you can provide different roles and users access to this platform. And this is where you can actually set it up in terms of the categories, the different inventories, the documents that you want to track. As I said, you can also customize your assessments. You can add different questions into the initial assessment that I showed. You can also customize how your flow is to approval. So if I want to change, like the first automation solution should not go to a PO, it should actually go to a delivery lead. So all those customizations you can do. You can also do the cost setup, which means that I can provide a cost of my UiPath license or any other application that I'm using, so that it can actually evaluate the cost benefit analysis. uh, this is one good one where you can actually import an Excel into your particular automation hub, and it can track all the information rather than adding the details one by one. So you can import a bulk pipeline into this particular platform. So that's all kind of important features this particular application provides. So you can download a CSV template. So this particular solution gives you a template, and then once you add this data, you can upload it back into Automation Hub. And then I was talking about the Jira connections, etc. So pretty flexible in terms of how you want to set up this particular application for your organization. And finally, if you want to manage certain repository, like a reusable components, it's all here. Uh, Finally, in terms of the pipeline that you have, you can also actually track the documents. As I said, it's like a document repository as well. So I'll go back to my solution that I had added as an opportunity. So you would see on top, we spoke about the assessment. We spoke about the cost benefit analysis. You also have documentation, so you can add your documents. You can add your components in terms of the reusable components, and then you can add who are the different collaborators. In case there is a change request for this opportunity, you can also add this particular application. So this is a, I would say, a high level summary of what Automation Hub can do. And then we can also plan for a dedicated session where we can also showcase some of the configurations within the admin console, which I was talking about. So, please feel free to share if you would be interested in getting into deep dive of how you can actually configure this platform for your organization and make it like a better fit for a specific project or a program. Yeah, so I'll take a pause before I move to another thing, which is the task capture. Yeah, any questions so far? Angela, is there any question on the chat if you can help me track?
Yeah, there's just one question about UiPath licensing. I'm not sure, Rohit, if you would be able to take that question.
Yeah, I would say probably, that's something which can be taken on case to case basis, understanding about, what licenses you're talking about. So of course there are different models that UiPath prescribes. So we can understand that offline, understanding your exact requirement, what kind of products that you're looking for. It's just Automation Hub, or you're also looking for a studio or an orchestrator. So it's pretty case dependent.
Yeah, so the question asks if this is bundled along with Studio and others, and what the approx license cost for Automation Hub is.
So what I understand is there are different models. It can be bundled, it can be standalone. So as I said, probably, we can, if you can drop me a message, or we can collaborate with the salespeople, we can understand how it can be best suited to your requirements. So yeah, it can be bundled, it can be a standalone as well. Yeah. Okay, moving to the next one, which is task capture. So this is another product which is provided and is useful for our discovery, because I've really taken advantage of this one to help me probably create my PDD rather than starting it from scratch. This particular product helps you track your screens, etc., and then you can start documenting your process. So task capture is something you can actually go to the task capture space on the documentation of UiPath. You can download an XML file, and that's something which will be in your system, and then you can open this and you can start tracking some of the processes that actually you want to automate. So this particular product needs to be installed on the user who's actually showing you the requirements. So what I mean is, if you are doing a requirement gathering, the person who's showing you that particular process, this task capture product has to be on their system, because this works on clicks and keyboard presses. So if you are doing it as a business analyst or a developer, tracking somebody's requirements might not be useful. So you might have to ask the other person to install who's showing you this particular process. So how we do is we start this. So when you have this particular product on your system, you can click on new document. I would say no. Yeah. And then this is where you start capturing your process. So when you click on capture process, it starts recording my system. So I'll quickly show you how it works. So if I click on capture process, so it's just preparing the environment. Okay. And then I'll say start capture. And then I'll start going to Google Chrome, and then I'll open the UiPath community website. So it's saying capturing is on. And then you would want to probably look at some of the upcoming events. Here you can click on that particular event that we are part of. I want to copy paste this event. And then I will go into an Excel where I have a template where I want to add a serial number. I want to add the name of this session. I would probably format this. Then I will add the date of this particular session. I would say, so this is my time and the time zone where I am currently. So I will say the speaker 1, speaker 2, sorry. So it's capturing what all I'm doing, and then I have added all the details I need. I will save this template on my system. Yeah. And while I was doing it, I could actually also enter the actions, but sometimes it's not really easy to ask the user to add those actions while you're recording this. So you can go back to your Word file and make those changes. So now this is stopped, so I can actually stop this so that it can go back and track everything. So this is the sequence of all the information that I have actually captured as part of my requirement. So this is like a flow. And then what you can do is you can go to file, you can say export this into a Word file, and then there are already existing templates that are provided by UiPath. But if you want, you can actually add your own template, and then you can also modify it for the task capture to add the information. So that's something which you can also configure. But I'm just using the existing template. You can give the title. So I would say PDD. And I will save this. So this also gives you two different PDD templates, whichever you want to choose. You can just export this, and on your system, you can just go put it on your desktop, and it will create a file which is like a ready template for you to start working on your PDD. So this would capture some of the information, like how much time I took on each system, uh, and then also track any kind of URL which was attached to that particular application, like it will track the Google Chrome URL, etc. So all those informations would already be available. So you can quickly just understand what has been captured. So it has captured from an as is description. This is the title that I provided. And then how much time I took. I took 1 minute, 1 second for the entire process. So that means you can understand how much time the user is actually spending to do that particular task that they're supposed to work in terms of the opportunity. This is all the information that you have to provide when you are updating this particular document. It can also track certain applications sometimes, like what all applications you have used. And then this is like a process map that it has created for me, which is like a start point, and then you can edit it for your own benefit. It has also tracked different statistics, like how many processes I actually used, what were the number of windows that I navigated to, what are the different actions that I performed. So this is giving a quick summary of the different data that I was actually processing while I was doing my recording. And then finally, the most beneficial part is taking screenshot of the steps that I have done. So it has actually also highlighted some of the things I did, and then you can add information to each action. So it makes it very easy for a business analyst. Personally, I have been into this role, and it makes it very easy for me to create the PDDs rather than asking the user to provide the screenshots of their processes. I have it handy with me, so I can start drafting my PDD. So this is what task capture helps on. It also helps on exporting a basic XML with the process that I showed you, which even a developer can use to initiate their activities in Studio. So it can give you an XML which they can use, which is very basic, and then you can start configuring it or changing it basis your requirement. So that's how task capture works. And then task capture can also be integrated with different platforms, like Automation Hub has something where you can actually utilize task capture on, etc. So that's a quick overview of task capture which I wanted to provide. And I'll pause here to take any questions on the entire session that we took. So overall, I think we wanted to cover what discovery is at an overall level as a process. We wanted to showcase Automation Hub as a platform where you can collate your ideas and track different statistics behind all the opportunities that you want to assess. And finally, looking at task capture to help you record your requirements in a specific PDD, which also can be configured based on your organization in terms of the format. Yep. So that is how I would like to conclude the session for today. I'm happy to take any questions if it's there on the chat. Also, probably I'll have a look if there is something which is posted. Okay, if there are no more questions, thanks again for joining. And then please feel free to drop us any kind of email or connect back with Rohit if you can. You need any information on Automation Hub or you need some more detailed session on Automation Hub. We are more than happy to provide. Thanks, Angela, for setting up the context and sharing the discovery stages, etc. And thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.